Good morning, Year 4. I hope you're all well. Today in English, we are going to be learning to identify the features of a diary entry. So we've learnt all of the features now. You've had a go at using them in all of our lessons for the past week and a half. And today we're going to look at a diary entry and you are going to begin to identify where the features are. So by the end of this session, you'll be able to explain all of the features of a diary entry with examples. You will be able to read a diary entry, identifying the different features that have been used. And you'll be able to begin to consider how you're going to include these features in your writing when you begin to write your own diary entry. I do have some retrieval questions, so if you'd like to pause the video here and write the questions on your piece of paper, off you go. Okay, so the definition is a woody climbing plant that hangs from trees. What is the word? Do you remember? It's a liana, and I've attached a picture there for you to have a look at too. Number 2, give a synonym for the word foraging. Now, synonym means what? That's right, a word that means the same or similar. And words that mean the same or similar of foraging means hunting, search, or looking around. So we know that in our book, The Explorer, the children were foraging for lots of food. They were hunting and searching. Now, number 3, I've made mistakes here, haven't I, Year 4? You know that better than me. I've written down the past tense verb for the following present tense verbs, but I've made 3 mistakes. What mistake have I made? That's right, I've assumed that when we change our present tense verbs into the past tense verbs, that we always end the ed suffix. We always add the ed suffix, but that's not the case. Sometimes we need to look at the word, look at the verb, so think. How could I say, I wouldn't say I thinked, I thought, get. I wouldn't say I getted, I got. And wake, I wouldn't say I waked up. What did I do? I waked up. I woke up. Okay, so you can see here that not all of our present tense verbs can be changed into the past tense just by adding the ed suffix. We really need to start to think about how we might change these into past tense. Now, today we are going to be looking at the features of a diary. Now, we've looked at some of these over the past week. All of the work that we've been doing in the past week and a half has all been about our diaries, and we know that. Can you remember any features of a diary that we've been looking at over the past week? Pause the video and write down any features that you remember. Did you remember that diaries must always be written in the first person? And we can do this by using pronouns such as I, my, we, and our. Now, when we write the diary, we are writing it as if we are the person who's writing it. We know that we're not Fred, and we haven't experienced what Fred has experienced. But we are going to put ourselves into Fred's shoes and start to imagine that we are Fred. So we need to use those first person pronouns. I did this. My feet were hurting me. We made a den. Our raft was secure. Now, I've got 2 examples here, and one of them is written in first person, and the other example is not written in first person. Can you have a look, spot any of the pronouns? Are they first person pronouns, or are they something else? Pause the video. Which section is in first person, which section is not? Okay, did you spot that the first section, the first bit of text, is written in first person? We can see that they have got first person pronouns such as I, our, and again I and our. Whereas this one is talking about another person as she looked down from their lofty home. They were tearing their trees from the ground. So when we write our diary, we always write in the first person. So when you are identifying the features of a diary later on, you are going to be looking for these first person pronouns such as I, my, we, our. Can you think of any other first person pronouns? Fantastic. So the first one is written in first person and the second one is not. Did you remember that our diaries must be written in past tense? Why should they be written in the past tense? That's right, because diaries are about something that's already happened. So an event that's already occurred. Now, we can use past tense verbs to help us, just like we looked at the start of the lesson. And we know that our verbs, if they are written in the past tense, do they always have the suffix ed at the end of them? No, they don't, do they? They sometimes do, but a lot of the time they don't. So that's when we really need to read it and identify where these past tense verbs are. So I've got two examples here. One of them is written in the past tense. One of them is not written in the past tense. We need to spot those past tense verbs and figure out whether or not the first sentence is past tense or the second sentence is past tense. So can you pause the video, have a think, can you spot the past tense verbs, and is that going to tell you which of the sentences is in past tense? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, did you notice that the first sentence is written in past tense? We have highlighted the verbs happened, having the ed suffix, making it in the past tense, and stuck. Now, stuck is not an ed word, but it still is a past tense verb, because the opposite of, well, the present tense verb for stuck, what would that be? Yes, I was sticking, or I am sticking in a large sheet of floating ice, for example, or I will stick or something. But stuck is my past tense, so I became stuck. Whereas my second sentence is not in past tense. That is written in the future tense, predicting something will happen. So again, when we are looking at our diary, identifying those past tense verbs, we're really looking, we're going to read the sentence and think, which words are verbs? Where am I doing words? Is something a doing word? No, it's not, is it? So we can skip past that word. Is dreadful a verb? No, it's not. What is dreadful? That's an adjective, isn't it? And we're going to look at that in a little while. But you need to be looking for the verbs and identifying if they're past tense. You can highlight it as a past tense verb. If it's not past tense, then you skip it. Okay. Now, another thing that a diary writer must include is personal emotions and feelings, and getting that ambitious vocabulary in. So that was our previous lesson yesterday. I'm sure you did really well in that, because we learned all about how we can include ambitious vocabulary. Now, when we are writing a diary, it's like a secret place. You write the truth about what has happened to you in the day. So you must include how you're feeling. If you hope for anything to happen, or if you're worried or fearful about something. Because usually a diary is for you and you only. No one else is going to really read it, apart from me in this example, in our lessons, okay? Now, I've got two examples here, and I want you to think, where have these diary writers described their feelings? And where have they used that ambitious vocabulary? Remind me, what is ambitious vocabulary? That's right. Ambitious vocabulary are words that we wouldn't just use in our day-to-day life. So instead of saying, I was feeling sad, we need to up that adjective sad, and we need to make it a more ambitious adjective, because sad is not as ambitious as a different adjective, which is what we looked at yesterday. So pause the video. Can you spot their personal emotions and feelings and any ambitious vocabulary? Off you go. Okay, how did you do? Did you find that where it says, I am nervous, I would rather do it alone? Feeling relieved. These are all feelings, emotions, how this person, this diary writer is feeling. These are personal thoughts. Now, did you spot some ambitious vocabulary? A rich, powerful country. What's this an example of? That's right, an example of an expanded noun phrase. Now, we have another ambitious vocabulary here, a whaling station. Now, that's an ambitious vocabulary because we are talking about the station being a whaling station. They've completed a day-long trek to find a whaling station. So again, when you are looking at the diary, you are identifying those features, find where the writer has really included those opinions, our thoughts, the emotions, the ambitious vocabulary. Did you notice this was something we did last week, but in our diary we need to use time conjunctions and adverbials to really describe when something is happening. Rather than just saying, I did this, then I did this, then I did this, then I did this. How does that make you feel if you read a diary that used all of those then words? A bit boring, isn't it? So we need to make sure that we use our adverbials of time to describe when something is being done. Can you think of any adverbials of time? Well done. You might have said yesterday. You might have said later that day. You might have used after. You might have used next. Now, I've got a paragraph here. I would like you to try and identify where they have used time conjunctions, remembering, and adverbials of time, remembering that they describe when something is happening. Pause the video and have a little look. Okay, how did you do? Did you spot that later is a time conjunction? After hearing the news of my father's death is an adverbial of time. They all describe when something is happening. So again, we need to be looking at those. Now we haven't looked at this one because this one is quite straightforward. A diary must always include the date or the time. Mostly always the date, sometimes the time, but the date or the time can be written at the top of the page. So you can see here that they've got the date, 21st of January 1915, a very long time ago, and then they start their diary. Or it could be included in the first few sentences by saying, over the past few months, I've been watching my crew members in the freezing temperatures. It's important because it tells the reader exactly when the diary is being written. So it's saying over the past few months, but mostly the diaries will have a date written at the right hand of the page at the top. So we need to be looking out for that as well. A diary must also have an introduction. Now, not a huge introduction using our 5 W's like we have in a newspaper report, but we really need to set the scene when we're writing a diary. So you might answer the question who, what, where and when, but you won't do it in as big as a detail as you would in a newspaper report. Now, I've got 2 extracts here. Which one is an introduction and which one is not an introduction? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, did you spot that the first one on the left is an introduction? Can you tell me why? Shall we read it together? Today has been an unusually busy day for me. When I woke up this morning, I noticed that the usual calm atmosphere within our group had been replaced by one of panic. So it's saying what has happened, when, this morning, and kind of starting to think about who is involved, the group of people. Whereas the second one, for now I must catch up on eating and sleeping and hope that they don't return tomorrow. That would be at the end of one of your paragraphs. Okay. Now, it's your turn to see if you can spot any of the features of a diary in this diary. So pause the video. I've got a bank of all the features of a diary here. I've got a mini extract from my diary. Now your diary is going to be so much bigger, but I want you to see if you can spot any of the features of a diary in here. If you can, then you'll be underlining them in the corresponding colours. But don't worry about that for now, because we're going to be doing this yourself as your task today. So pause the video. Can you spot any of these features in this diary? Think about the words, think about the phrases. Pause the video, have a think. Okay, we're going to go through this in part 2 of the video. So year 4, really important that you head over to part 2 now for our final 5 minutes of today's lesson. Okay, thank you for listening so far.